I'm John.
Hi,
my wife,
I'm John Militello. Thank you all so much for being here. This is so awesome. We're really happy to be able to host these events for the candidates for CD11. We were so happy to have Mikey as our representative, and obviously now so happy to have her as our governor. And moving on up. But as we now have to replace her seat, we're hosting all of these events. So we have 4 scheduled this month so far. There have been other candidates that have reached out to us to host as well. So please sign up for the remainder of our events should you be interested.
And if you want to host an event for another candidate, because I don't know if we have the schedule to do that, but definitely reach out because they're wanting some. I'm a district leader in this district here in Glen Ridge, and I'm also part of the Glen Ridge Dems. This was a truncated, kind of a shortened primary, and we were undecided, and I figured what better way with I think 13 candidates originally, and I think it's down to 11. At least whittle it down to the ones that we thought were viable and liked and wanted to get to know. Also, I think the best way to keep democracy alive in this way is not either you can protest, you can do these things, but to vote, I think is the best way. And then number 2 is people tell me, I run into friends, I don't want to talk about politics, I hate them, they're all bad. And I'm like, well, some are worse than others. And if you don't like your choices, if you don't, whether you're Republican or Democrat, if you don't engage in the primary, you can't really have a say in the general. And I think it's great to get to know these candidates because while one may not be 100% of what you want and that your candidate might not win the primary, at least you get to know some of the other candidates and hopefully you get energized enough to vote, to get your friends to vote, and to keep on keeping on. So that's what we wanted to do, is to have people introduced. And part of this, we want to have people in town who know the candidates, because that's how we selected some of these candidates, or people we respect and know in town we're backing. So I didn't know John at all, except for some Facebook posts in Glen Ridge. So Deirdre and Jim are going to introduce John.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Hi, everybody. My name's Deirdre Comey. I live literally right around the corner on Forest. And I think I've known John for maybe close to 20 years.
At least.
At least when he joined our church, St. John's Episcopal in Montclair.
At least 21 because Kayla was baptized there.
Okay.
And he's now a senior in college.
And he's now like.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
So John and Kathy came, and I will be very honest with you guys. It took me, I think, a really long time to realize that he was even involved in politics. I knew he was a lawyer. I knew he was smart. I knew he was, caring about people. But I wasn't really clued in till maybe a few years ago. And I'm going to say, only till, I would say recently, since this campaign has started, I think did I really kind of figure out, okay, why it took me so long to figure that out. And I think it's because he's not really like a politician. I didn't get that vibe from him at all. And now, looking at some of his stuff, I'm like, okay, it hit me in the face. He's not a politician. He's a public servant. And he's, running for this seat, to further a lot of the stuff that he's been doing for many, many years. So please vote for John. Thank you.
My name is Jim Watson. I also live very close to you. In fact, I live 3 houses down from Deirdre. And this is my wife, Marcia. We are lifelong Glen Ridge residents. We have spent most of our lives in New Jersey, except for little time in some foreign areas like Tennessee. We do not know John for any long period of time. We met him at the house of a neighbor who knows our political inclination. So they invited us over to meet John, and having known some of the other candidates that are also running, we were very impressed by John, particularly because John feels the way that we do about what the critical issues are for our area. this is such a unique area because it's so poor and so rich. So you have to deal with all sorts of different problems, and you have all of these constituencies that really don't want to talk across to each other. John talks across. John understands that how we do really depends upon how we deal with this wealth divide. And it's not just a theoretical, it's not a theory on his part. He's been deep in the woods, he's been out in the streets on issues that really impact local wealth, local viability, and particularly from my perspective, he's very much involved in public transportation. And while I admit we both own cars, we're very much engaged in public transportation. We really think it's important for this area to succeed, to improve. So we were quite impressed with John. We started supporting him. We have actually paid into his campaign fund, and we think he would be, out of all the ones that I know that are running, I think he's the best. He's the one that would really work for us. So, thank you.
All right.
All right.
You have questions for him?
Jim, Deirdre, Marcia, thank you guys so much. And John and Michelle for your hospitality. Thank you very much. And thanks to everybody for making the time to come out here. As you pointed out, we've got 28 days left and almost that many candidates. So that you would all take the time really means a great deal. And those introductions were so kind. Yeah, it has been, well, we joined the church when we moved to West Orange in 2001. So yeah, it's been a while. Not that long. We're all still young. All of us in this room are young people. I continue to redefine young. Every year. I'm about to turn 54, and that's still my early 50s. And then I'm going to be in my mid 50s till I'm 59. That's the plan.
Right.
But seriously, thank you all for making the time. It's a privilege to be here, and it's so great. The reason that we're here is that we just elected Mikey Sherrill as governor of the state of New Jersey. I was just with Mikey yesterday in Passaic County when we had our county reorganization, where I'm one of the county commissioners, and her vision for our state is such a positive one. I'm so thrilled that we broke a 60-year curse of not being able to elect 2 Democrats in a row. It's about time.
Yes.
And we've got great times ahead of us with Mikey as our governor. But that also means, with her resignation from Congress in November, that it falls to all of you and your neighbors here in the 11th District to choose her successor, to figure out who's going to carry that mantle forward. And you're doing it at a time when what's going on in Washington and our American democracy itself is incredibly fragile. When it feels like all those guardrails, whether you want to call them statesmanship or whether you just want to call them, the ability to feel shame and not do something ridiculous, all of those guardrails seem to crumble under the weight of Trump 2.0. And Trump is all about self-service for himself, for his cronies, for his billionaire backers. I'm all about public service, and I appreciated so much the way that you guys described that. Because I am someone who has always been in it for that set of reasons that is about serving others, regardless of their background, regardless of how different their background is from me. And what I would propose to you all as you think about my candidacy and the other 10 candidates that are still in the race is listen to what we have to say and come to distinguish the difference between promises and proof. Everybody in the Democratic consulting world is telling all of us, you need to say you're going to go to Washington and fight Donald Trump. That's a great promise. Who's got the proof? I'm the candidate in this race that joined the case against Trump in the U.S. Supreme Court when he tried to weaponize the U.S. Census against immigrant communities and won. I'm a candidate who went up against Republican Governor Chris Christie when he tried to remove funding from a very important road project in our area and from very important senior services in my county, and won again. I want to pause on that road project for a second because it's Route 46 and Route 3, right by Montclair State. Y'all remember how that used to be?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. One of the most, oh yeah.
Every Friday.
Every Friday.
Every Friday.
Yeah.
Every day.
Almost.
One of the most dangerous highway interchanges in the state of New Jersey. And when I came on the county commissioner board, then we were the freeholder board. When I came on the freeholder board at the end of 2012, there had been a plan in place, a design in place to make it safer, and there had even been federal funding in place. And it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And I went to my first meeting of a body called the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. Don't worry, that's not on the quiz. And the NJT, the governor's representative on the NJTPA board said, we're gonna delay this again. We've got another priority in another part of the state, footnote, where Republican voters are, that is gonna be something that we're gonna take this federal funding and spend it elsewhere. And I stood up, I said, you can't do that. This is too important. It's too important to the safety of students on the Montclair State campus, too important to safety to my constituents in Little Falls and all of you in Montclair and Glen Ridge and the other neighboring communities. We need to keep this funding in place and we need to keep this project moving. And we did keep the funding in place that year and we got the project done. And it was about 12 years late, but for any of you who have driven through it in these last couple of years, you know how much safer it is.
Yes.
You know how much easier it is for all those kids in the dorms along Clove Road to get in and out of campus more safely than they used to have to when they came out the front gate on normal. That kind of work, leaning in, fighting the fights that need to be fought, and winning against Republicans is the record of results that I have to offer. I've also gone toe-to-toe with the Republican Party in federal court on the issue of voting rights. I'm a voting rights lawyer, and I have stood up on those issues and won. Time and time again, I've spoken to a couple people already, folks who were trained over many years to go out and protect the vote. I've been out in Pennsylvania in presidential years. I've been out across New Jersey. I've trained hundreds of other lawyers to do the same. And what I will tell you, I'm watching the things that are happening in Washington right now, and I'm very, very concerned about American elections remaining free and fair. And I would propose to all of you as primary voters that if we want to make sure that the presidential election of 2028 is free and fair, we need to send a voting rights lawyer to Washington from this district right now. This is going to be the first campaign of 2026. It is going to set the tone and the conversation for everything that comes after. And democracy and protecting our rights from the way in which the Trump administration is actively trying to take them away and erode them is a crucial issue. Another crucial issue for all of us, and I thought you said it so well, however you're doing, you just don't feel like you're doing that well. Affordability is a constant struggle for us here in New Jersey, and it's something that I've worked on for a dozen years as a county commissioner. If you lived in Passaic County, any of you live in Passaic County? If you lived in Passaic County, your county property tax rate has gone down every one of the last 9 years.
Wow.
And most of my constituents are paying less in county property taxes than they were in 2018. And we didn't do that by doing less. We actually did it by doing more, but doing more in smart ways that brought new resources into our county. So when we had the opportunity to compete for federal funding, for roadway safety, for big projects like 46 and 3, but also for a Rails to Trails project to create recreation in places like Wayne and Wanacue. We went out, we grabbed those funds. I'm proud to say that I brought more than $600 million back into Passaic County in federal transportation funding already, more than $960 million back into the entire 11th district already from my current position. And that's been part of how we kept property taxes down in Passaic County, again, by doing more, not by doing less. Now you can probably tell I'm kind of a policy wonk, I'm kind of a nerd. So I want to actually totally switch gears and tell you all a little bit about myself personally. My dad grew up on Godfrey Road in Montclair, but ended up out at Hershey, Pennsylvania. He was in academic medicine, he was a pediatrician, and we ended up out there because that's where Penn State's teaching hospital is. And my father was a country doctor. My dad drove a pickup truck. And in the back of the pickup truck, he had his old black doctor's bag and he had a chainsaw. And they were there side by side, not for amputations. Although, But because sometimes when you're going to see a kid out in the country late at night, you know, a down tree could stand in your way. He wasn't going to let that stand between him and his patients. And he was ready to walk towards difficulty and danger when that's what it took to help somebody. Many of you are probably old enough to remember 1979 and the nuclear power accident at 3 Mile Island in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So when the leaves were off the trees in wintertime, I could see the TMI cooling towers from my bedroom window. That's how close we were to TMI. And you know, this isn't fortunately, this is not a story about my health. Don't worry. John just gave me this very, very worried look. Like, yeah. I used to have brown hair.
You're too young.
But they evacuated young families and pregnant women to the fallout shelter under the Hershey Arena. And I went there with my father, and because he wanted to go and comfort those parents and see those patients and let them know that at a time when people were fleeing central Pennsylvania that he was there for them. That's the kind of example that I try and follow in my public service every day. And by way of educational hi Amy.
Hi, John. I can vouch. He went to a halfway decent law school.
I went. First, I went to a so-so college in Providence, Rhode Island, called Brown University. Then did go on to Harvard Law School, like my friend here. In between, I spent a year as a Raoul Wallenberg Scholar at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And if I said to you, where in the world should a nice Christian boy go to find his Hindu wife? I imagined Israel would not be anywhere near the top of your list. But that's our story. My wife grew up in Atlanta, Georgia as an Indian immigrant and was studying her master's in theological study with a focus on the Holocaust. I was there as a Raoul Wallenberg Scholar, and 26 years later, 30 years later, 26 is what her parents know. We are still together. She's on the faculty at Fairleigh Dickinson University in Madison at TNEC. Our son Kedar, who was baptized at St. John's in Montclair, where we still go to church most Sundays, is now a senior in college out at UC Berkeley. Okay. And that is our story. I am in this race, as I said, not for self-service, but for public service. I think the record of results that I have in county government, the record of taking on Republicans and winning that I have as a voting rights lawyer and as a public official are what this district needs right now. And I'm looking forward to hearing all of your questions, but I just wanted to begin by asking for your vote. February 5th is the special primary election. Vote by mail ballots are already out, and my team of Maggie and Rich can help you guys ask for a vote by mail ballot if you'd like it. I encourage that. It's safe with the asterisk about the postmark, which I imagine somebody might ask about. And it's a way to get your vote in early and know that you're done and know that you don't have to worry about what the weather's going to be like. Early voting starts on the 29th of January and runs for 6 days. And then election day is Thursday, February 5th. And if you've ever voted on a Thursday in February before, this is our challenge. And this is why it's so great that the Glen Ridge Democratic Club and that you guys, John and Michelle, are hosting these events. Because this is an important choice. The Democrat that we choose to be our standard bearer in the special general election in April is going to be, again, that first voice in 2026 that's talking to the entire country, and the eyes of the entire country are going to be on this race, about what matters to us as Democrats in America today. And I believe that has to be voting rights, and it has to be the issue of affordability, particularly healthcare affordability. I'm an advocate of a public option. I've made that a central plank of my campaign, and it's a commitment that I have on day one in Congress. And that day one is this April. This conversation is the first of many that we're going to have throughout 2026. And with your help, I'll be the one having it on behalf of our party. So with that, I want to thank our hosts again, and I want to open the floor to any and all questions, comments, concerns that you have. And this fire is warm.
Should have thought of that.
No, it's terrific.
Okay.
I gotta figure out the Michigan
Oh.
connection. Everybody,
John's from Michigan.
we all have the New
That's the
Jersey
knit.
cutting board at home, right? There's the problem.
And the Michigan coasters.
What can I
I-
tell you about myself? What questions
I
do you
have
have?
a
Yes.
question, just briefly, because I'm sure there are other questions, but I'd love to just hear just a little bit more. I'm very impressed about it going to the Supreme Court over the census issue. Just talk a little bit more about who brought that case forward and your role, and I'd just love to hear just a bit more
Yeah,
about
absolutely. And the census was something that I was working on in Passaic County from probably about 2018. And we set out to make sure that we would have a complete count. Passaic County, 1/3 of my constituents are immigrants. And during the Trump administration, they were very concerned about identifying themselves to the government. And I put that in air quotes, but I'll give you an example. In 2017, our community college had the first decline in enrollment in 50 years. And it was because immigrant students at our community college didn't want to give their name and address to the government, which is what you do when you enroll at community college. So I knew that the threat was real. I knew it was held by our constituents in very deep ways, and in ways I think all of us can sympathize with as we watch the conduct of ICE in this current administration. But that concern was there for them back to the very beginning. We made a decision to do a vigorous census outreach in 5 different languages, not just English, but also Spanish, Arabic, Gujarati, and Bengali, because those are the top 5 languages in our county. And as part of that, I wanted to be an advocate on the issue nationally. And one of the things that happened during the Trump administration, the first one, is that he wanted to add a citizenship question to the census. And this was all about not collecting the information, but about making folks in households that are of mixed legal status, different backgrounds, less likely to fill out the census. That was designed to cost states like New Jersey the representation in Congress, where 25% of us are immigrants. You push down that reporting number a couple of percent, all of a sudden we're down to 11 members of Congress. Texas gets an extra one, and you see what they do with those. So when the opportunity presented itself to join an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief in the US Supreme Court against the citizenship question, I joined with a group of bipartisan local and county elected officials from across the country to say, this is a bad plan, it's a bad policy, and because it's going to cost our constituents money. And that's one of the real dilemmas of so much of what the Republicans and Trump are trying to do right now is, you can say something that sounds in isolation maybe reasonable. We should ask about citizenship on the census. We should, change how Medicaid applications are processed, which is one of the things in the big beautiful bill, what have you. What those of us that are in government realize is that affects all of us, not just the people that you're talking about. And I realized I was segueing to healthcare, so let me not do that and pause and let everybody else ask a question. But thank you very much for asking that. It was a big part of what I felt is standing up for my constituents and making sure that they knew they had an advocate, even though I obviously don't look or sound like I'm from an immigrant household. I am.
Thank you.
Could you talk a little more about the public option in healthcare?
That's a core thing that I believe in, and it's one of the things I want to do first when I get there. Passaic County runs one of the last remaining county-owned senior living facilities, a facility, 406 beds for seniors and people with disabilities. So I see how that gets budgeted for, and I see how whether you're there on Medicare or Medicaid or private pay or pension or the various other ways that folks can get their health care. Any one of us as a recipient of health care understands our coverage. Is it covered? How much has it cost me out of pocket, and so forth. When you're running an institution, you recognize that it's really like that game Jenga, and you start pulling out pieces of the funding, and that affects everybody, not just the folks receiving that funding. So I look at the big beautiful bill and the Medicaid provisions there that both, cut some of the allocations, but also make it harder to stay on Medicaid because now you have to reapply every 6 months instead of every year. That's going to start pulling money out of a system where I'm serving all different kinds of people, including folks in this room. And to maintain the quality of care, to maintain the provider to patient ratio, to make sure that the facility is of the quality and cleanliness and so forth that everyone should reasonably expect, all those different pieces come together. Now, the other thing we're seeing with the removal of the Affordable Care Act, the subsidies for people who get their care on the Affordable Care Act exchanges, is that it's a system that we're having to continue to fund, and I think a public option creates basically a government-run healthcare coverage option, which is going to use the free market in healthcare to pull down those costs across the board, to bend that cost curve in the right direction, and to make sure that insurance companies are in the business of paying for care, not paying people to deny you care.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent question. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I keep saying I'm for Medicare for all, and I realize that I'm not sure what that means. I know what it means in the bigger sense, but how we would get to something like that. I've lived in places where they did have national health insurance, and I can tell you that it's pretty darn good. It's much easier. The care was good. I had a baby in New York, under our medical care, and then I had a baby in Melbourne, Australia, and the care in Australia was much better. And I didn't pay a cent. I never saw a bill.
I've heard that from a lot of folks that have lived abroad, as well as members of my extended family who are from abroad. So the U.S. is this really unique economy. Does anybody know a big part of the story of how employer-provided health insurance came along?
It was like a request of some labor union in like the 1940s.
Exactly right. And why? Oh, it's okay. This is I'm supposed to be answering the question. Not asking. Because of World War II era wage freezes. The way in which one of the things that the federal government did to control wages at a time when so many working age men were overseas serving in the military was for employers to provide other incentives that fell outside that definition of wages. Now, of course, that's a truck that rich folks drive their taxes through. Excuse me, a whole day, you know what I'm saying. John, that's when I said you can edit parts out. That's what I was talking about. So we have this system where your healthcare comes very often with your employer, and then we have this separate system once you hit 65 or whatever the eligibility age is for Medicaid. I think the public option, is an artful middle ground there. I think we have to recognize that we are talking about a sixth of our national economy, and that's not something you can change overnight. I certainly know I've seen it in a dozen years in Passaic County, the way that we've been able to bend the cost curve in the right direction for our employee health care. It's one contract renewal at a time, it's one policy change at a time, and over time you get there. I think that's what the public option uses the free market to accomplish, rather than something more abrupt. Good job with the answer. That was not required. So,
But you still stumped me on the second one. So. You haven't heard of me. Congrats.
That's great. Thank you very much. Any other questions? I can't have answered all
I
the
have
questions.
another if no one else has a burning. So I loved in the intro the description of you as a public servant versus politician. My question is, what it makes me think about is how partisan Congress is, how out of control Trump 2.0 is, and there's no way to prevail without getting right into the politics, as far as I can see. So I love the public service, but we are in such a huge screaming fight right now. So I'd just love to hear a little bit more about that.
So one of the first things that I think we all have to acknowledge is that even once you've sent me to Congress in April, we still have a Republican majority, unless some other set of things happens in the coming months that changes that. But so those first 6 to 8 months that I'll be there through the end of the current calendar year, after which I believe after the general election, Democrats will control at least the House of Representatives, not also the Senate. What I have is the seat and the microphone, and my readiness to raise all these issues that I've talked about, the fact that I've gone to court when I've had to stand up on these issues. I'm ready for all those fights. I'm also ready to work across the aisle. I mean, a great number of the elected officials in my county are, at the local level, are Republicans. We work together on things of common interest, and I think there's always commonalities that you can find. I mean, there's certainly, take transportation infrastructure, for example. We're coming to the end right now of the 5-year period covered by the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed under Joe Biden. That's been great for North Jersey. The NJTPA, the board I sit on, has gone from steering about $2 billion every year in federal transit funding to almost $4 billion every year. And that's letting us do more, again, without burdening you all as property taxpayers. That ends at the end of the current fiscal year, September 30th of this year. What's next? We don't know yet. There's a surface transportation bill coming through Congress, but making sure that that moves forward, making sure that there's funding in there for localities that want to do good creative work locally, making sure that there's funding in there to make sure that there are climate resiliency requirements. If we're going to spend federal transportation dollars, which is all of our tax money, we need to be doing it in ways like we do in Passaic County, where there is a water runoff reduction plan as part of your approval of whatever it is you want to do. Because we are entering a time where climate change is going to affect all of us.
Yeah.
Issues like that are issues where I think I can work across the aisle. And I'm not going to Washington to turn up the heat, but I'm also not going to give up the fight. So on the things that matter, with the bully pulpit, with legislation, with litigation, if I have to, I'm ready for those fights.
Thank you.
Two things you mentioned there, which one is Democrats are likely to win the House this year, so yay. But there are fiscal deadlines, and so in the optimistic scenario in which both you are elected in 2026 and re-elected later in 2026, and the Democrats win the House, you'll be in the House when Republican President, Republican Senate, Democratic House trying to figure out how to fund the government. What's your strategy to prevent the Republicans from jamming the Democrats and doing whatever the heck they want to take all this money away that's been good for North Jersey, as you talked about?
That's a great question. Did everybody hear the question?
No.
So, I'll summarize.
Yes.
The question was, even after November, it's possible that the Senate will still be in Republican hands. It is certain that the White House will still be in Republican hands until 2020. What can we accomplish on funding things for North Jersey and on the priorities that we're talking about? And like in any legislative body, the answer is as much as we can. Whatever compromises we can reach with the folks on the other side of the aisle to accomplish the things that are priorities for Northern New Jersey and for all of us, that has to be the starting point. But again, I think we can start talking about some of these bigger ideas and moving in a direction where then, in the same way I was talking about this April setting the tone for this November and beyond is going to set the tone for 2028. And there's going to be a whole other conversation we get to have about who's going to be our next candidate for president. And you may all have your pick for that, but in the meantime, let's stay focused right here in the 11th district.
Question. It's not a secret that the Democratic Party is really challenged and struggling to kind of figure out where its footing is going to be, especially under the shadow of Trump and kind of what we felt was a stinging loss, but it wasn't really a loss. I'm curious what your thoughts are on what can we do as a party to kind of reset ourselves? What are some of the policies? Because it's a big umbrella, but I don't feel like we've really connected ourselves yet. And I'm just curious how you feel. What are some of your ideas on how we should move forward?
I think we have to speak to the practicalities of folks' everyday lives. I think, most of the folks in this room are probably to some degree a policy nerd like I am, but we need to speak to the practicalities, to affordability, to, the difference between driving through 46 and 3 10 years ago and now, and how that difference is government service and the work and the resources that we're able to bring back from Washington, D.C. Talking about, the set of educational policies that we need to figure out on. I mean, I haven't followed the absolute latest news, but I know that the governor is either about to sign or has signed a bill on cell phones in the classroom. There's a whole host of sort of very practical questions. And at the national level, those also become questions about principle and about how folks are being protected or not. You talk about schools and education. It is appalling what Linda McMahon is doing to the U.S. Department of Education. Mm-hmm. But one of the things, and maybe this is because I'm a lawyer, one of the things that bothers me most is the elimination of the Civil Rights Division in the Department of Education. Because that's the body that protects students with special needs, that stands up for students that aren't getting stood up for in their local districts. And I think eliminating offices like that, eliminating offices like the inspectors general in the various executive departments, where those are the folks that are designed to prevent and root out fraud and abuse. If the first thing you do is fire all those guys and gals, that's you're absolutely an administration I know I need to worry about. That shouldn't be allowed. And I don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't know if that looks like the Government Accountability Office, which reports to the legislature, becoming more involved in that role or what. But I think at the level of principle, we have to say the executive can't stop policing itself, or the executive can't stop being policed when either party is running it.
Is that legislation you would propose, perhaps?
Absolutely. Like I said, I don't know exactly what it would look like. You're watching me think. But I mean, I always thought it was ironic that Trump came in and talked about the lack of oversight and tried to shut down the Government Accountability Office. And how was Congress not like, that's ours. That office reports to us. That's the one. Yeah. But I think, members of Congress and Democrats in Congress need to be doing that kind of standing up and articulating things at the level of principle, whether the principle is, every unit of government needs a watchdog, or every kid, not just the lucky ones, deserves an opportunity.
Yeah, we're living in such scary, terrible times because of the fear of the other and the embracing lack of empathy and power, just like raw power, is what runs America. And I'm wondering, if you were elected, what is so disheartening is, the Trump administration, we don't get it, but we know them. How would you work with your colleagues in the House to bring them back to being human beings again and governing for the people?
Drugs.
Exactly. No. Wow. That's a tough. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's where we're at right now is like nothing we've ever experienced before. Obviously, this is a country that literally fought a civil war at one point, and yet, the civil war on social media has us at each other's throats constantly, and puts so many vulnerable people and communities in such a place of worry and terror all the time. When my wife went to India, she's a naturalized U.S. citizen. When she went to India last spring, I said, take your naturalization certificate with you. She's never done that before.
Right.
But I don't know what they're going to do when she tries to get back into the country. She's a professor who writes about race and religion in America. So like all those words that the Trump administration said had to be deleted out of government documents, there'd be not much left in her books. But yeah, the idea that you have to worry about that. The idea that now apparently we have to worry about getting in our car and pulling away from ICE. I don't have a perfect answer to that, but I think, it has to start with the places where we can identify our common humanity and our common needs.
This is going to be our last question. Sorry to cut off the great conversations, but I want to be mindful of everybody's time.
Were there others? So keep it in the policy wonk angle. I think, and to your question, I think one of the things that we're seeing so much is the way in which how much of our government structure, or how much of governance was based on norms as opposed to actual structure and policy. And so I think you touched on with the GAO or the accountability and the Inspector Generals, are there other aspects of governance that you actually want to enshrine in law? Because now we know we need them, we can't count on everyone. Yeah, we can't count on everyone to uphold those norms that we've held for so long.
I couldn't have said it better. The things that have been norms for 249 years, whether you want to call it honesty or statesmanship, or the framers called it our treasure and our sacred honor. I don't know what that phrase, sacred honor, I don't know how you apply that so many times now. But what's always been a standard needs to be written into law in a lot of cases. And I don't have an encyclopedic list for you, but I gave a couple of examples, which is accountability in the executive branch. You can't just fire those folks. The rule of law in general. If the federal courts say it, and this is one of the dilemmas in our federal system, the federal courts are there, but they're not their own enforcement mechanism. That's the executive. So when the federal court says that guy was improperly deported, it's the executive's job to carry out the solution that the court orders. And we have an executive now that's refusing to do so. So I don't know exactly how, but Congress needs to put those, turn those norms into laws whenever they can. When something is funded, have a mechanism to require that be carried out. Whether you're talking about the elimination of USAID or so many other units of government, those were created by Congress and funded by Congress. And the executive's function under Article 2 is to carry that out. And we need a way to enforce that, and we've never needed that before. So it's and I just want to acknowledge that's not a perfect answer. Democracy is big and messy and cumbersome. I think we start from common interests, common concerns, and foundational principles like individual liberty. And whether you're talking about that from the standpoint of the First Amendment or the Fourth, or any of the others, the enforceability of those rights as against the government and as against each other has to, remain the cornerstone. And I don't know quite how to get us back there.
John just has
So,
a quick follow-up.
Yeah, just to follow up to on the idea of breaking norms and standards. You being a lawyer, Trump has used the legal system to not only just break norms and standards, but really use to do novel things with the law and skirt the law on that razor's edge. I know, like Mikey's proposed, like maybe New Jersey should not pay federal tax. I don't know how she could do that, because if we don't pay our federal tax, we're all going to go to jail. But what novel, out-of-the-box things? Because you as a lawyer do employ a lot of other lawyers in Washington, also in the state and in Senate. Most of them are lawyers. What can you guys do to stop playing checkers with or playing by the rules? What can you do to do new novel things to actually combat that?
Yeah. I haven't honestly given a lot of thought to the proposal of withholding federal taxes. I think knowing how much of what we do at all levels of government in New Jersey is federally funded,
right, but
creates a real dilemma there. So I don't know that I have a complete answer on that. But I think you're going to start seeing some of those answers in some of these regional compacts that are emerging among states. States that make the decision to continue to enforce the American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines on vaccines and not RFK Jr.'s. I think you're going to start to see the emergence of that kind of topic by topic and region by region response. And I think the role of Congress is to make sure that there are opportunities to do that, while recognizing that there's a whole bunch of states in the U.S. that would do a whole different set of, experimenting and working together that we wouldn't want. It's that push-pull of the federal system.
Well, the Republicans want state rights. So
except when.
Right, but if the Democrats say, fine, we'll lean into state rights, we have the right not to pay into this. Like, we, I think, need to fight back legally, smartly. I think there are probably ways that when you live by the norms and standards, you think, I can't ever do that. But this other guy's like invading Venezuela.
Yeah.
Right. Again, no perfect answer, but federal law can create a floor when it comes to rights, responsibilities, opportunities, and so forth. States should be free, as our state has, to increase those, to give people more rights. Obviously from the place of Congress, I'm looking to raise that floor and make sure that whether you're talking about voting rights or reproductive choice or any of the other issues that are important to us as Democrats, that those protections are there for every American. But to your point about what's going on right now and these next couple of years,
Pretty dominant.
It is. So, no perfect answers, no perfect solutions, but I believe if we can work together, if we can send a candidate to Congress that is going to stand up on the things that North Jersey needs and the things that we as Americans need in terms of our democracy and the affordability of our day-to-day lives, I think we in the 11th District will at least have done our part. And I hope I earned some support here in the room today. If I did, please tell your friends. Make sure they know there's an election on the first Thursday in February. Make sure they get out and vote. Make sure they know I'm number 2 on your Essex County ballot. If you'd like to host something like this, not through the Glen Ridge Democratic Club, but I'm continuing to do events like this across the district over these next 27 days. If you want to get involved in the campaign as a volunteer or as in our finance committee, as a donor, any number of other ways, grab me or Rich or Maggie today, or find me online at johnbartlett.com 24/7.
Thank you.